finish their lunch. So, Excellencies, honorable members of Parliament, those of you who are following us, I would just like to give you a very warm welcome because we are being followed. We have a virtual connection to parliaments around the world, and I would like to give them a very warm welcome. Dear Chair of the Committee of World Food Security and Medium, it's a pleasure to be with all of you here today. I will introduce Medium at the appropriate time, naturally. This is our pleasure to welcome you to the side event of the CFS on the uptake and implementation of CFS policy products through legislation, the role of parliaments and parliamentary networks. My name is Marcela Villarreal. I'm the Director of FAO's Partnership and UN Collaboration Division, which actually hosts FAO's work on parliamentarians. I will be your moderator today. So the side event aims to further strengthen the uptake of CFS recommendations and their incorporation in national legislation and policies by proactively involving legislators along with national governments and other relevant institutions and actors. We are here today to discuss possible pathways to strengthen contributions to and uptake of CFS policy products by parliamentary institutions and networks based on regional and national needs and demands. But first, I would just like to take a few minutes to provide an overview of the second Global Parliamentary Summit against Hunger and Malnutrition, which was organized by FAO with the collaboration of the Spanish Agency for International Development, and was held just this past June in Chile. And I would just like to walk you through some of the key outcomes, and I'd like to focus directly on the aspects directly involving the work of the CFS and the valuable contribution of parliamentarians and their networks to actually the work of the committee. And after that, I will, of course, give the floor to the ambassador to have his views on this one. So I think it's no need to repeat this. We all know that the world is not really on track to meeting its commitments to end hunger by 2030. That's, I think, very well known by all of us. And we know some of the reasons why we're not on track. And these reasons are basically the complex interaction between factors. And these factors express themselves differently according to the regions, but the main factors, I think we all know them. Their economic downturn, where COVID played a very important role. Their conflict, which has been ongoing for a very long time. It's not only Ukraine, and it's not only the more recent one in Gaza. It's a conflict that is protracted in many regions, and specifically in some of the countries of Africa, whereby it has direct impact on food insecurity and also, obviously, climate change. So, as we see all this complexity, all of these factors basically interact and overlap and have different incidents in different regions. And this is why it is so very important to bring the parliaments and to bring the discussion within the parliaments to address these issues, which are, as I say, quite complex, and to ensure that they will get enough attention in national legislation so that they will have the appropriate legal frameworks to be able for countries to address them, but that they will also have the necessary budgets. We all know that parliamentarians approve the budgets, and obviously parliamentarians also provide oversight on what the government is doing over the commitments that they have made. So parliamentarians are, of course, very, very strategic actors when we talk about reaching the SDGs in their entirety, and specifically for SDG 2. So we agree with this, obviously, wholeheartedly, and we have supported so far more than 45 parliamentary alliances and networks in the whole world. So these are networks, alliances against hunger and against malnutrition, and this is all over the world. Africa, Asia, Europe, Latin America, and the Caribbean. And the work that FAO has been directly supporting has produced up to now more than 80 laws that have been passed in different parliaments around the world. So this is work that has had quite a bit of impact. So we just concluded the second Global Parliamentary Summit against Hunger and Malnutrition, and that of course builds on the first Global Parliamentary Summit against Hunger and Malnutrition. That one was held in Madrid in November 2018, and whereby there was a declaration, the Madrid Declaration, that emanated from that. Now, in the second summit, we actually went a step further. We had more than 200 parliamentarians, 15 presidents and vice presidents of national and regional parliaments and parliamentary bodies from 64 countries who came in presence to Chile just this past June. And they did agree, in fact, to a Global Parliamentary Pact against hunger and malnutrition. And this is, of course, the first in its kind. So what does the pact do? The pact supports the transition towards agri-food systems that, of course, as we all know from the FAO perspective, have to be effective, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable. And they have committed to ensure that from their own parliamentary work within their own parliaments, they will do everything possible to ensure that legislation is produced and also that budgets are approved that will support that legislation and those initiatives. And also they will keep a check on governments, but also they will provide, also they will help to get the political will that we know is so necessary to achieve development goals. So we know here we have Ambassador Ferrero close to us, and we had actually the pleasure of having him at the Global Summit in person. And we really thank you for that, for having traveled all the way there, but indeed to ensure that the link between the work with parliamentarians at FAO and the CFS is very, very much supported and strengthened. And indeed, this was his achievement. He proposed from the very beginning of the time in which we were constructing the pact that there be that very important and strategic link, we believe. And now that link is a reality. So we know that the pact is a pact. It's not a law, so it's voluntary. It is non-binding, naturally. But this is the first global set of commitments made by parliamentarians on the progressive realization of the right to food and for agri-food systems transformation. And very importantly, what the pact does is that it will keep track of what is happening, what the parliamentarians are actually doing. It will monitor the work, and we will be knowing exactly how that work is going to be advancing and where we would be able to act further. So the pact actually calls on the Committee on World Food Security to establish appropriate mechanisms to facilitate representation of parliamentarians, and of course not any parliamentarian, but those who are dedicated to the work and to the fight against hunger and malnutrition, to come and to, alongside with governments as key drivers of the implementation of the CFS instruments and policy documents, and ensure that these issues will get further, and also not only looking at some of the CFS policy instruments, but of all of them in its entirety. So here we have a really strategic moment, a really important path towards the future. So we are really lucky to have with us here today the chair of the Committee on World Food Security, who we know is uniquely positioned to guide us in the process of identifying pathways to strengthen contributions to uptake of CFS policy products and by the parliamentary institutions and networks, based, of course, on regional and national needs and demands. So because of this, the ambassador's intervention will be followed by regional interventions from different parts of the world. So without further delay, it is my big pleasure to give the floor to my friend Gabriel, Chair of CFS, Ambassador Gabriel Ferrero de Loma y Osorio. You have the floor.
Muchísimas gracias, Marcela. Thank you so much. Thank you very much indeed. To you first, Marcela, and to all your team here present for all your commitment and all what you are doing within this organization to bring all the different voices of partners truly embedded in the deliberations and decisions and the impact, ultimately, the uptake, what we call the uptake of what the committee deliberates on and agrees, of course. I just come out of the plenary session very energized. We just actually endorsed, now it is official, the voluntary guidelines on gender equality and women's and girls' empowerment in the context of food security and nutrition, which has been, it is actually the start of a journey and also the end of the first phase of achieving a global consensus on such a difficult topic, I must say, as the one we just achieved. But before going into what this means and what in general the guidelines or policy agreements achieved at the committee represent or may represent, and how can they empower the members of parliament, those of you who are here joining remotely, of course, thank you for your commitment always. But before going to that point, I just want to make a remark on my national capacity. I'm so proud to be part of a government of Spain, that has promoted and supported and partnered with FAO for, I think it's more than 15 years, if I remember well. And processes take time. Projects that are funded for 1 year, frankly, they may be this useful. Processes that are supported steadily, that are capable of learning and adapting, such as the one we have been working together through the support of the Spanish Agency for Development Cooperation, are the ones that make a difference. And I want to recognize the commitment of you and your teams, Marcela, of FAO, and with a special recognition of the role played by the regional office for Latin America and the Caribbean, and those professionals that are working there, sometimes behind the scenes of this headquarters in Rome, but are key for these processes to flourish. And I want to mention especially my dear friend Luis Lobo. We are friends from the university, so I want to recognize his commitment and thank him for his commitment, representing all the people, all the teams that have been supporting this process in FAO. Marcela, I was so delighted to be in Chile. It was such an enriching experience. I learned so much from parliamentarians, from members of parliament from around the world, and of course from all those that were there in person. The Global Pact is an amazing achievement. It is a milestone that will make a huge difference. I'm so proud that it went from Madrid to Santiago de Chile, Valparaíso to be precise. And then we will go to Africa, I understand, for the next summit. This Global Pact represents the consensus, voluntary of course, whatever we can call it, but it is a political statement by parliamentarians from around the world on the recognition, first the recognition of their key role, regardless of the political party, of the family, of political origins, but their key role of them, of all of you who are members of parliament, the key role for advancing the right to adequate food at the country level, and all the legislation that needs to be passed so that the different aspects of bringing into the ground the right to food need. So first, it's a very clear political signal. It's a very clear consensus on the role, the key role of parliamentarians and parliaments. But it is also a request, a very strong political message coming from the constituency of parliamentarians requesting to have a voice at the global level, to have a voice in policy making, not just, of course, at the national level or regional parliaments at the regional level, also globally. I was encouraged to see this clear call from at the Pact to engage at the deliberations of the Committee on World Food Security. I have the honor of chairing for these last 2 years and for a few days still. Because it's so important, when I look at the agreements that are achieved at the Committee on World Food Security, what we, in the jargon, it's called products. Personally, I dislike the word product. It's a very, I would say, materialistic approach to a document. But each and every of the agreements achieved at the Committee on World Food Security represents a process of deliberation where, and this is what distincts the Committee on World Food Security, all the stakeholders, and very especially civil society and indigenous peoples, representing those that has less power of voice at the national level, in the ground, at the local level, and globally, are put at the forefront. And when I think about what does this mean for, as a result, as an outcome, I look at it as an international, voluntary of course, but it's an international consensus on some topic, following a process that may last at least 1 year, but in many cases more than 2 or 3 years, as we have seen with on the gender equality. They embed all the voices, not just of the governments, but also of all the stakeholders that have been part of this deliberation. So it is a process, it's not just a product. It is an international consensus, which is more than a document. And from this perspective, what I clearly see is that it is an empowering tool for many of those that are willing to advance the right to food within governments. Governments are not, we all know that, they are not uniform. There are different interests, and sometimes within the government, different voices and different forces. This is an empowering instrument for those within governments, and of course, civil society organizations, social movements, farmer organizations, local authorities, parliamentarians, who really are committed to bring the right to food into a reality. So what I see is that the dream, if I may put it that way, of the impact of this committee would come mainstreamed through the preamble of laws and legislations that are passed at the country and at the national level. It's no need to translate the full document into a law. It needs to be adapted to each context and to each of the realities. It will not be just one legislation, it will be probably several. But they are an extremely useful hook, framework at the global level, that because its nature of being an international consensus that has been negotiated and with the legitimacy of having included all the voices, can serve to parliamentarians to take it as the basis for moving forward the political agenda and the legislation that translates it into practice. Needless to say about the rest of the functions of parliamentarians and members of parliament, of course, yes, passing budgets, making governments accountable, of course, yes, but it's very especially on defining the regulatory frameworks and the legislation that is key to advance the right to food in its multiple dimensions. I think that this is the key contribution the committee can make to parliamentarians. But for that to happen, we need parliamentarians' voices actively participating within the Committee on World Food Security. So, concluding, I am committed to bring the voice of members of parliament, the constituency of parliamentarians within the committee. I put forward this request, this call that is embedded in the Global Pact to the Committee on World Food Security to the Bureau in September. It is now in the agenda. It will be discussed after my mandate with a new chairperson who is absolutely marvelous, Ambassador of South Africa. So I'm very much looking forward to move ahead on that and to have the voices of parliamentarians as a constituency present and active within the committee. Because this means ownership, and this means that afterwards the huge network of parliamentarians and alliances will be almost an automatic transmission of what is agreed at the committee at the national level. So thank you very much indeed, Marcela, once again. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so very much, Chair of the CFS, Gabriel. I think that this link is indeed very strategic, tremendously strategic. So we have the products and processes from the CFS, and which have been, some of them quite sensitive in nature. Like today we're talking about the gender and women's empowerment ones that had a very difficult discussion behind them. Now they are now a reality, but we also talk about land tenure, security of land tenure. We also talk about responsible investments in agriculture and food systems. We have indeed, as you call them, processes, products that are changing the world and that have a fantastic potential of changing the world. Linking this with parliamentarians who will be able to take at the national level this a step forward, and embedding this into actual law is going to again support really important changes in the ways in which people live. Actually, I think we will be able to advance even more the possibilities of having a better planet and a better life for everybody. So thank you so very much. We believe in that link, and we see the strategic nature, and count on us to make sure that it will go further also together with you. So thank you very much.
I cannot stay for the whole event. I'm sorry. I have to.
We understand. We understand. It was a privilege to have you here already. So thank you so much. We do understand. So whenever you need to leave, we understand. So thank you so very much for being here, for your commitment, and for making this link a reality. So let us go now to the different regions, and let us start with Latin America and the Caribbean. And we have a contribution that was shared by a really important parliamentary institution, that's a Parlatino. It's a regional parliament for the whole of Latin America. And we do have the president of this institution, the Honorable Silvia del Rosario Jacopo, who shared with us her views. So can we have the video, please?
Estimado embajador Gabriel Ferrero, presidente del Comité de Seguridad Alimentaria Mundial, representantes de FAO, amigas y amigos. Es un honor saludarlos en nombre del Parlamento Latinoamericano y Caribeño en este evento paralelo sobre el rol de los parlamentos y las redes parlamentarias en la adopción e implementación de los productos del Comité. En primer lugar, quiero valorar el rol del Comité de Seguridad Alimentaria, que en su casi medio siglo de vida se ha consolidado como la principal plataforma internacional, intergubernamental e incluyente para fortalecer el compromiso contra el hambre y la malnutrición en todas sus formas. En este camino, los parlamentos tenemos mucho que aportar, como ha demostrado esta alianza entre el Parlatino y la FAO, que surgió allá en el año 2008 y se consolida en el año 2009 con la creación del Frente Parlamentario contra el Hambre de América Latina y el Caribe. Esta plataforma plural, apoyada por las cooperaciones españolas y mexicanas, que ha impulsado más de 100 leyes en torno al ODS 2. Varias de ellas son leyes modelos del Parlatino, marcos normativos de referencia que han inspirado a diferentes legislaciones nacionales en nuestros Estados miembros. En la recientemente celebrada Segunda Cumbre Parlamentaria Mundial contra el Hambre y la Malnutrición, presentamos la experiencia de varias de estas leyes, como la Ley Modelo de Agricultura Familiar del año 2017, la Ley Modelo del Cambio Climático y la Seguridad Alimentaria y Nutricional del 2021 y la Ley Modelo para la Prevención y reducción de las pérdidas y desperdicios de alimentos del año 2022. En dicho evento suscribimos junto a todos los parlamentarios y parlamentarias presentes el Pacto Parlamentario Global contra el Hambre y la Malnutrición, instrumento del cual el Parlatino es un activo aliado y promotor. Al momento de generar las leyes modelos, han sido claves el rol de la cooperación internacional de los distintos instrumentos orientados del Comité de Seguridad Alimentaria. A modo de ejemplo, solo quiero nombrar las directrices voluntarias sobre los sistemas alimentarios y la nutrición. Nos han inspirado a iniciar este proceso de actualización de la ley modelo de etiquetado de productos alimentarios del año 2017. Mientras que los principios para la inversión responsable en la agricultura y los sistemas alimentarios fueron determinantes en nuestra declaración sobre el aumento de la inversión responsable en la agricultura y los sistemas alimentarios ante las crisis del COVID-19 del año 2020. Esta agenda no se detiene. Es en estrecha colaboración con FAO. Estamos prontos a aprobar la propuesta de ley modelo sobre cooperativas agroalimentarias en América Latina y el Caribe, al mismo tiempo que se está próxima a presentar una ley modelo de agroecología precedida de un importante proceso participativo que hemos trabajado e incluido a las 3 consultas públicas y alentadas por las recomendaciones del grupo de expertos de alto nivel sobre seguridad alimentaria y nutrición. En su nombre, los enfoques agroecológicos y otros enfoques innovadores para la agricultura sostenible y los sistemas alimentarios que mejoran la seguridad alimentaria y la nutrición. Seguiremos empujando la transformación de los sistemas agroalimentarios para garantizar la sostenibilidad y el ejercicio del derecho a la alimentación adecuada de todas las personas. Cuenten con el Parlatino y muchas gracias por darme esta oportunidad para poder comprometerme nuevamente a continuar trabajando como lo hicimos hasta ahora. Ustedes tienen un aliado en Parlatino, así como nosotros tenemos un aliado con FAO, con la cooperación española, con Amexid y con ustedes, que son para nosotros y para nuestra región el eje de trabajo en este tema que nos preocupa y nos ocupa desde Parlatino. Muchas gracias. Hasta pronto.
Yo quisiera agradecer directamente a la presidenta del Parlatino por esta intervención donde vemos directamente el impacto, el vínculo entre los productos del Comité de Seguridad Alimentaria y el trabajo de los órganos regionales parlamentarios. Y también quiero aprovechar para saludar a nuestro amigo Luis Lobo, que veo que nos está siguiendo virtualmente, quien ha liderado durante muchísimos años este trabajo del cual nos hemos inspirado desde América Latina y el Caribe. Gracias, Luis. Muy bien, ahora tengo el gran gusto de darle la palabra a la honorable Sonia Rojas Méndez, quien es la presidenta, la nueva presidenta recién elegida del Frente Parlamentario contra el Hambre y la Malnutrición de América Latina y el Caribe. Tiene usted la palabra.
Un gusto saludarles a todos por este medio y antes de nada darle las más sinceras felicitaciones al Comité de Seguridad Alimentaria a su presidente, el señor Gabriel Ferrero, a Miriam Ciscar, de la Agencia Española de Cooperación, así como a todos los organizadores por llevar a cabo este importante evento sobre el rol de los parlamentarios para la implementación de políticas en el marco del trabajo que desempeña el Comité de Seguridad Alimentaria Mundial y que sin duda nos permite de una manera más cercana estar en permanente conexión y diálogo para afrontar esta causa común que nos une, que es el combate al hambre y a la desigualdad en el mundo. Como saben, hoy nos enfrentamos a notables desafíos para erradicar el hambre y la malnutrición en todas sus formas a nivel global. A nivel global, la prevalencia de la subalimentación disminuyó ligeramente, siendo un total de 735.1 millones de personas, pero aún se encuentra por encima de los niveles anteriores de la pandemia, a la pandemia. Por su parte, América
Creo que tenemos un problema de conexión.
aún 6 en el 2.
No. Presidenta del Frente, creo que no la estamos escuchando. No sé si usted nos escucha. La honorable Sonia Rojas, creo que hemos perdido la conexión. Lo siento muchísimo. La vemos, pero no la escuchamos.
¿Me escucha?
Ahora sí, ahora sí. Muy bien,
Okay.
adelante, adelante.
Gracias. Indicaba que el 6.5% en el 2022, alrededor de 43.2 millones de personas. Y además, esto no nos podemos olvidar del cambio climático y los pueblos indígenas, poblaciones que ya de por sí son vulnerables a la inseguridad alimentaria, que cada día ven empeoradas sus condiciones de vida. Sin duda, para combatir estos indicadores y contribuir a la recuperación de nuestros países, la cooperación parlamentaria es fundamental, ya que los parlamentarios tenemos la capacidad de posicionar la seguridad alimentaria y la lucha contra el hambre como una prioridad política a través de las funciones legislativas, presupuestarias y de fiscalización. Como saben, son múltiples los espacios donde los parlamentos y las alianzas parlamentarias podemos intercambiar sus buenas prácticas y diseñar en conjunto las respuestas normativas a estos desafíos. Y quisiera destacar la segunda cumbre parlamentaria mundial contra el hambre y la malnutrición que acaba de llevarse a cabo el pasado mes de junio en el Congreso de Chile, y donde más de 200 parlamentarios y parlamentarias acordamos la implementación de un pacto global, parlamentario global contra el hambre y la malnutrición, en el cual nos comprometimos firmemente, entre otras acciones, a trabajar por una transformación hacia sistemas agroalimentarios que sean sostenibles, inclusivos, equitativos, resilientes y propios para la realización del derecho a una alimentación adecuada para todas las personas. En dicho pacto también se hace el llamado a los socios internacionales, instituciones y donantes para que apoyen los esfuerzos que surjan a partir del pacto, fomentando así la cooperación internacional para esta agenda, a quienes aprovecho para agradecer por todo el compromiso y apoyo, en especial a la cooperación española, quienes nos acompañan el día de hoy. Además, en estrecha coordinación con el presidente del Comité de Seguridad Alimentaria Mundial, nos comprometimos como frentes parlamentarios a estrechar lazos de nuestro trabajo, solicitando su apoyo para que la voz de los parlamentos también esté presente de forma permanente en este espacio de gobernanza mundial. Queremos ser unos voceros reconocidos en nuestros países en las tomas de decisiones y de recomendaciones de este importante espacio de gobernanza mundial. Para ello también animamos a todas las alianzas parlamentarias constituidas y parlamentos a unirse a esta solicitud. Para terminar, solo quiero recordarles que necesitamos poner más esfuerzos en todos nuestros socios y de todos los parlamentos del mundo para que en estrecha coordinación con la academia y la sociedad civil podamos asegurar sistemas agroalimentarios más resilientes, inclusivos, sostenibles y saludables, tarea que nos exige aún más a todos y todas. Les reitero las felicitaciones por el importante trabajo que están llevando a cabo en el marco del Comité de Seguridad Alimentaria Mundial y cuenten, como siempre, con el apoyo del Frente Parlamentario contra el Hambre para el impulso de esta importante agenda que nos une a todas las regiones del mundo.
Muchísimas gracias. Quiero agradecer muy especialmente a la honorable Sonia Rojas Méndez y justamente seguiremos este llamado para colaborar muy de cerca, como lo estamos de hecho ya haciendo, con el Frente Parlamentario de América Latina y el Caribe, que sigue inspirando y poniendo los derroteros del trabajo que hacemos a nivel mundial. Muchísimas gracias por su intervención. Now, let us move to Africa and in particular to East Africa. For our next speaker, and the next speaker, it's my pleasure to introduce the Honorable Françoise Uwumukiza, who is member of the East African Legislative Assembly, the Legislative Assembly of the East African Community. And we also had the pleasure and the honor of having her with us in the recent Global Summit. So over to you. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, my dear friend, Marcela, and your team. Can you see me and can you hear me?
We can see you very well and we can hear you very well.
Thank you very much. I'm actually working from an area that is outside the Arusha. So we are in Moshi with an activity with the researchers across the world. So I will talk of this activity even and what you have done. I'm Françoise Uwumukiza, as you said. I'm a member of parliament at the East African Legislative Assembly, YALA, and I'm the chairperson of the Committee on Agriculture, Tourism, and Natural Resources. I first and foremost start by thanking from the bottom of my heart FAO support that allowed me to come to Chile. It has been a high-level experience, the treatment, the outcomes, the group, everything was all right. So I liked that one. I enjoyed it, and I'm committed, even more than committed, to make sure, let me say, I revenge by working very hard. So I would like me to present in terms of work done by the East African community, of course, through YALA, the East African Legislative Assembly after Chile Pact. And I'm just honored by the theme, today's theme, by CFS, that is very, very insightful as well, as I thank the chairperson of CSF, Uptake and implementation of the Committee on World Food Security, policy products through legislation, the role of parliaments and the parliamentary networks confirmation. So I'm glad because these are already anchored under our core functions. Our first function is legislation. The second one is oversight. The third one is representation. The activities I'm going to share after Chile meeting are anchored under those three functions. You know that we are talking of core priorities for parliamentary action for food security and nutrition from an African perspective, and how CFS policy recommendations and tools may further support ongoing parliamentary work on these domains in the region. So activities completed, you can see that they were from 2020, 2023, but I selected those ones we did after Chile so that I emphasize on the pact. Under legislation and the policies, we made a capacity building on our committee, 18 committee members, all of us, we are 21. We were with the assistant clerks, were with the experts from FAO, from Ethiopia. So we were capacitated on the livestock bill. And we are glad now we are going to take up that bill. Likely we will continue to support until we have a law in the community. Livestock is key for the food nutrition. Sometimes we tend to forget livestock when we talk of food. It's as if food was the vegetables, tubers, cereals, those ones. But now we can see that even livestock is supporting, especially Africa, in terms of cattle, chicken, and so on. And we have motions moved and passed by the Assembly as resolutions. After Chile meeting, it was in June, there is a resolution of the Assembly urging the Council of Ministers to recommend the partner states to honor the Malabo Declaration for enhanced livelihoods and accelerate the growth. It was passed after Chile summit in June 2023, and it was passed by one of the honorable members, the SG of the East African Parliamentary Alliance on Food Security that happened in Nairobi. So this is one of the resolutions we already have after this pact, because I talked about the pact, though I haven't reported yet, you will see why. Under representation, advocacy and awareness raising, we have public debates, capacity building, public engagement, community outreach. So participation to the second Global Parliamentary Summit to end hunger and malnutrition, which happened in Chile, Valparaiso from 15 to 16 June 2023, with the objective of the summit that was to provide a space for parliamentarians from different regions in the world to discuss the challenges agri-food in the world, agri-food system are facing, of course, in the world. Among the outcomes of the summit, remember, we have parliamentarians committed themselves to honor a pact which aims at safeguarding sufficient and adequate budgetary allocations, working towards the transformation of agri-food systems. That one is very key. What we are doing, what we are saying, we can't just miss to mention this very honoring statement, very honoring pact that we have to make sure we comply. Unfortunately, we have been waiting for the report to be tabled or to be shared so that you can also table that report, Chile report, in return. So I'm still waiting for that report. I kindly beg you, your intervention to get the final document. Then, IALA, through the committee and various members, participates in various programs relating to nutrition and food security. The first Secretary General, as I said, is a member of IALA, and the 3 members participated to the 5th East Africa Parliamentary Alliance for Food Security, and it was the General Assembly meeting that happened from 14th to 17th October. So it's this month, 2023. Then we had the committee dialogue, because after Chile meeting, I challenged my committee members, what can we do even before the report is tabled? We had a committee dialogue on the role of parliamentarians in enhancing responsible investments in agriculture for the transition toward a more sustainable food system in EAC and Africa at large. And also, 2 members of IALA, including myself, we are currently participating to the Making Agricultural Trade Sustainable, MATS, annual high-level dialogue being held in Moshi, here in Tanzania. We started yesterday, and we are ending up tomorrow. The aim is to identify key leverage points for changes in agricultural trade policy that foster the positive and reduce the negative impacts of trade on sustainable development and human rights, such as high food prices and their impact on farmers. Again, I thank you, I thank FAO, I thank all of you, Africa Region Office, especially for the insights, input they gave us, and the data to make sure the presentation was appreciated and it was also useful to others. IALA is engaging with various stakeholders of both regional and international with similar agenda and interests, such as FAO, regional and local offices, the East African Business Council, ISA, AfriCenter Kenya office, Sayatini, Uganda, ESAF, Tanzania. ESAF is about farmers in Tanzania, in Uganda, in Rwanda. 16 countries, Southern Africa. EALA promotes the agenda of food security and nutrition with inclusion. We think of women, we think of youth, we think of girls separately. We also think of people with disabilities. Then during engagement, we also debate our motions, but also our bills on the floor of the House. We also bring the agenda of food security forward in that way. EALA participated to the African Union high-level meeting during the agribusiness and food security panel session on July 11, 2023 in Nairobi, Kenya, to analyze the existing agribusiness policy framework, ongoing government incentives towards achieving food security, and the current level of private sector participation in the agribusiness value chain towards the African Continental Free Trade Area. I was there, the eyewitness about how it's supporting the community. EALA participated to the African Biosciences and Biosafety Communication Symposium, ABBC 2023, which was held in Nairobi, Kenya in July 22nd to 24th this year. The ATNL committee chairperson attended the round-table dialogue, that's myself, on lessons learned about policy formulation and outreach on bioscience tools for sustainable food systems and One Health goals in Africa. It was very useful. On October 23rd, 2023, the Committee on Agriculture, Tourism, and Natural Resources, through the chairperson, had an interface with the Eastern and Southern Africa Small-Scale Farmers Forum. This is the ESAF in Tanzania, to discuss about their views on food prices in EAC region and how farmers are affected. I shared their views with the group, and I'm ready to report with the committee about the outcomes. We had engagement with the various media houses across EAC, journalists who are facilitated to attend, social media such as YouTube. EALA plenary sitting transactions are live streamed on YouTube, and every activity of the assembly is reported on X, that is former Twitter. The list is not exhaustive since time is not on our side, but we will still report on this. Participation in the first Africa Climate Summit held from 4th to 6th September 2023 in Nairobi, Kenya, and discussed sustainable solutions to global climate challenges as a preparation meeting before COP or COP28, including Hunger. For your information, I was also delegated to represent the assembly in COP. Then this is the voice of farmers. This is the voice of nutrition, food security to be taken up. And this is the voice of FAO, of course. Under budget.
Thank you.
Constant budget. Someone is talking?
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to thank you. We need to wrap up.
Should I finalize, conclude?
Please, yes.
Yes, under the budget, a constant budgetary advocacy through the Committee on General Purpose, which deals with the EAC budget. We have 3 members by country who are serving both committees, AHNR and the committee dealing with the budget. And through various debates on the floor of the House, we move the food security agenda forward. Under oversight activity on the Lake Victoria Basin Commission and the Lake Victoria Fisheries Organization in Dar es Salaam, whereby we were able to identify the need in terms of nutrition, in terms of proteins needed to support stunting cases of children in the community. We are considering bills. The Council of Ministers is going to bring us 3 bills: seeds bill, sanitary and phytosanitary bill, aflatoxin bill, and we will continue to work with the level stock bill. Those are activities we are going to continue to do. And we also have other engagement that we are going to do in planned activities, participation in the COP, creating a conducive environment, including incentives, financing, market opportunities, and skill development for youth agripreneurs. EALA will monitor investing in innovation digitalization, and mechanization in agricultural sector. IADA will promote research for identification and implementation for climate-smart agriculture. IADA will support behavior change strategies in both production practices as well as consumption pattern. Many other activities will be done as we engage with the various stakeholders with whom we share common interest. Thank you very much. I appreciate this time, and I'm sure we will keep in touch.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Honorable Françoise. We were, of course, very honored that you had agreed to co-chair the actual summit with us, and now we see that you are a full-fledged champion of the pact, and we know that in your dynamic and able hands, the pact is going to have continue to have impact in the region. So thank you so very much to you. So now let us move to Asia. We have a video contribution by Honorable Siti Rosai Meriyanti Dato Haji Abdul Raham, who is Secretary General of the Inter-Parliamentary Assembly of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. So let us hear from her.
Honourable Members of Parliament, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the ASEAN Inter-Parliamentary Assembly, IPA, is honoured to speak at this important side event as a part of our unwavering commitment from the second Global Parliamentary Summit against hunger and malnutrition. ASEAN, characterized by its rich diversity, stands as a formidable agricultural hub with 30% of its land dedicated to agriculture. And this underlines the profound role agriculture plays in ensuring food security and sustaining livelihoods in the region. However, as the global population is expected to reach a 9.7 billion by 2050, and with ASEAN nearing to 800 million, there's an urgent need to recognize the challenges ahead. The repercussions of a booming population, coupled with climate change, overfishing, food wastage, natural disasters, and inequality could result in heightened food insecurity, increasing instances of hunger, and widespread malnutrition. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to hear that the Global Parliamentary Pact was formulated during the second Global Summit, underscores the critical role of parliaments and collective dedication of the global community in promoting food security and nutrition, with a strong emphasis on prioritizing these concerns within the national legislation. In line with the effort, IPA has been constantly working towards ending global hunger and delivering on ASEAN's regional food security priorities. Recently, at the 44th IPA General Assembly, one of the adopted resolutions was on encouraging the application of the ASEAN guidelines on promoting responsible investment in food, agriculture, and forestry sectors, or ASEAN RAI, proved to be a testament of IPA member parliaments in advancing the application of ASEAN RAI at regional and national levels. Another significant milestone was the launch of the Practical Handbook for ASEAN Parliamentarians in collaboration with UNFAO and the International Institute for Sustainable Development, offering guidance on promoting responsible investment in food, agriculture, and forestry sectors. And I am pleased to announce that this has led to the next step of an awareness campaign to socialize the handbook between IPA and UNFAO beginning in 2024. In ensuring the ongoing parliamentary efforts, the IPA Strategic Plan 2023-2030 also emphasizes the need for the adoption of parliamentary measures to achieve and ensure sustainable development. And this sentiment aligns seamlessly with the Global Parliamentary Pact on the pivotal role parliamentarians play in realizing the Sustainable Development Goals. Ladies and gentlemen, food security is not only about ensuring adequate food, it also touches on economic, health, social and environmental sustainability. And as parliamentarians, we bear the responsibility of transforming this into tangible actions through legislation, oversight and budget allocation. And let this event serve as a catalyst for our commitment towards a world free from hunger and achieve food security. Thank you.
Thanks go to Honorable Haji Abdul Rahman. I think that was a very inspiring contribution and a very direct constatation of the impact of CFS products, and precisely one that is really important among all CFS products, which is the responsible investments in agriculture and food systems. That was very impressive, so thanks go to her. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we do have a few minutes left, very few, unfortunately. So I'd just like to check if there would be one question or two maximum. If we're really at the end of the time, and I do want to listen, of course, from the parliamentarian from Egypt has asked a question. Can we have it, please?
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to see you again. And I think one of the things that was mentioned is how we, as parliamentarians, can help each other in promoting what we think has worked somewhere else. So my question would be, if any of the legislations have already come through in any of the countries within the laws, which law would it be in? And if it is possible that we can share what can be put into the law in order for us to at least have it as a guideline. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, and thank you for connecting with us. Thank you also for having been at the Global Summit. We do have a number of different examples, which we will definitely send you, because we have, as I just mentioned earlier, we do have 80 laws that were actually approved and passed, which then, of course, many, many more that have been proposed. So we'll definitely send you a number of these examples, and we're sure that we can engage you in that dialogue. So thank you very much for that intervention. So, ladies and gentlemen, now we're coming to one of the most important parts of our talk today. And for that, it is my real pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Miriam Siscar-Blatt, who is the head of the Sectoral Cooperation Department of the Spanish Agency for International Development Cooperation, AECID, who have been not only our partners throughout this whole process, they have been instrumental in the whole work of FAO has been doing throughout the years, starting in Latin America with parliamentarians. So the AECID has been really a visionary in having supported this work, and so we're more than delighted to have with us Miriam Siscar, Head of Sectoral Cooperation, AECID. Miriam, you have the floor to close this event.
Thank you very much, Marcela. I know we are running out of time, so I'll try to be brief in this closure. I will switch to Spanish for the closure. Distinguidos y distinguidas señorías, embajador Gabriel Ferrero y presidente de la CSA, compañeros de la FAO, querida Marcela, querido Luis, que también nos está escuchando en pantalla, parlamentarios y parlamentarias, excelentísimas Silvia Giacomo, Sonia Rojas, François Sumukisa, Haji Abdul Rahman, delegados y delegadas de los gobiernos, de organismos multilaterales y de la sociedad civil. Estimados y estimadas participantes, es un honor para mí clausurar este evento sobre el papel de los y las parlamentarias en la lucha contra el hambre y la malnutrición. En este momento de clausura quisiera expresar mi más profunda satisfacción y gratitud por todas las intervenciones que se han compartido, todas ellas muy interesantes. Trataré de mencionar lo que se ha venido diciendo. Como se dijo en la segunda cumbre parlamentaria mundial contra el hambre y la malnutrición que se celebró en junio de este año y que muy bien ha centrado Marcela, se destaca el papel crucial de los y las parlamentarias en la lucha contra el hambre y la malnutrición y hacia la realización del derecho humano a la alimentación, también o especialmente en tiempos de crisis como el que estamos viviendo. La segunda cumbre parlamentaria contó con más de 200 parlamentarios y parlamentarias, 15 presidentes y vicepresidentes de parlamentos nacionales y regionales y órganos parlamentarios de 64 países, que acordaron establecer un pacto parlamentario mundial para apoyar una transición hacia sistemas agroalimentarios que sean sostenibles, inclusivos, equitativos y resilientes. Y como muy bien nos ha recordado Marcela, la señora Villarreal, acompañados de presupuestos para poder alcanzar los objetivos de desarrollo sostenibles, todos y cada uno de ellos, pero especialmente el número 2, un pacto para la realización del derecho humano a la alimentación, una alimentación adecuada para todos y todas. Y es hora de poner en práctica esta mayor conciencia colectiva, este compromiso renovado y esta voluntad política fortalecida que transforme las leyes, la política y programas públicos inclusivos y que sean eficaces. Porque ya lo dijimos en la cumbre y lo reiteramos aquí, el hambre no es un problema técnico, es un problema político y se tiene que resolver con políticas. Y para eso los parlamentarios y parlamentarias son los que mejor posicionados están. El Pacto Parlamentario Mundial pidió al Comité de Seguridad Alimentaria Mundial que se establecieran mecanismos apropiados para poder participar, que los parlamentarios y parlamentarias pudieran participar en la CSEA. Y queremos agradecer muchísimo al actual presidente, Gabriel Ferrero, por traer este tema y confiamos en que la nueva y nombrada presidenta lo institucionalizará. La gran experiencia que tenemos, las lecciones aprendidas, así como la consolidación de estas redes que vinculan a parlamentarios de todo el mundo, pueden aprovecharse para fortalecer todavía más la adopción de las recomendaciones de la CSA y su incorporación en la legislación y las políticas nacionales. Desde AECID seguimos reafirmando la urgencia de acabar con el hambre y con la malnutrición en el mundo como requisito para lograr todos los objetivos de desarrollo sostenibles. Tenemos que hacerlo todo desde una perspectiva feminista, porque el hambre y la malnutrición son consecuencia de la pobreza y la inequidad, y tanto la pobreza como la inequidad tienen rostro de mujer, de mujeres que trabajamos la tierra, pero que lamentablemente tenemos muy poco acceso a la propiedad de la misma. Y nos gustaría identificar y compartir ejemplos de buenas prácticas, que ya los tenemos, ¿no? Especialmente en relación con el desarrollo de legislaciones innovadoras. Para ello, tenemos que identificar áreas prioritarias claves en las que queremos trabajar, los sistemas agroalimentarios sostenibles y de una perspectiva de género. Y como nos recordaba la honorable Sonia Rojas, también con el trabajo con pueblos indígenas y el impacto que el cambio climático tiene sobre sus tierras y sobre sus vidas. Y como nos recordaba la honorable Omukisa, desde la diversidad y la inclusión. Y hablando de diversidad e inclusión, no podemos clausurar sin reconocer la importante labor y dar la enhorabuena al embajador Ferrero por la adopción de las directrices de género, felicitarnos a todos y a todas por este trabajo y porque las directrices hoy son una realidad. Contarles que desde febrero de este año, del 2023, en España tenemos una nueva ley de cooperación al desarrollo, una nueva ley que nos interpela a llegar al 0,7% del Producto Interior Bruto en ayuda oficial al desarrollo para el año 2030. En este momento estamos en el 0,33. Eso implica un crecimiento exponencial que queremos hacer de una forma eficaz y basándonos en lo que ha funcionado y sabemos que funciona. Así pues, ya cierro aquí reiterando nuestro compromiso, el compromiso de la Agencia Española de Cooperación Internacional a seguir trabajando en esta apuesta con los y las parlamentarias, con todos ustedes. Muchas gracias.
Muchísimas gracias, Miriam. Ya has clausurado el evento, pero solo quería una vez más sencillamente resaltar la importante labor que hemos llevado en conjunto y nos hace muchísima ilusión poder llevar esta actividad a que tenga aún más impacto, consolidarlo en todas las regiones del mundo, construir sobre el impacto que ya tiene. Muchísimas gracias. Cerrando el evento, solamente quisiera recordarles a todos que tenemos en el atrio, tenemos un lugar en donde podemos ver un poco más sobre el trabajo de los parlamentarios. Tenemos una exhibición a la cual los invito a todos a ir. Quisiera solamente, para finalizar, agradecer muy especialmente a nuestros invitados, a quienes nos siguen a distancia, a los honorables parlamentarios y parlamentarias, y muy especialmente a Miriam por haber venido desde España, al embajador Ferrero, quien ya está concluyendo su término, pero que estamos seguros que va a seguir apoyando este trabajo hacia futuro. Quisiera agradecer a todos nuestros intérpretes y muy especialmente quiero agradecer a todo mi equipo que ha hecho este evento una realidad de una manera profesional, trabajando de día y de noche, y lo cual les agradecemos muchísimo. Gracias a todos por estar acá, por habernos seguido y esperamos que sigan disfrutando del Comité de Seguridad Alimentaria.
I just want to introduce myself, this Honorable Arik Mowindo from South Sudan, just to register the attendance of South Sudan, a new country in the globe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. It was a pleasure to have attended this meeting on Zoom.
Thank you. Thank you again. Once again, those of you who followed us at a distance, thank you so very much for being with us. And I would like to especially thank our participants from Costa Rica, for whom it's 5 in the morning. So a special thanks go to them.
Shukran, Manakwai.